Starting in the American League East Division, it is officially baseball season. Spring training, pitchers and catchers have already started reporting as we record this. In recent years, the American League East has been arguably the best division in all of baseball. They've had a World Series team each of the last 2 years, with the Yankees in 2024, the Blue Jays, of course, last year. We're going to run through each team's roster, and then at the end of that, we'll provide a breakout pick from the entire division for the 2026 season. We'll each do a breakout pick. And it projects to be a pretty damn good division again. So let's kick things off with the reigning division and American League champs, the Toronto Blue Jays, who were tied with the Yankees for the best record in the division at 94 and 68. Braden, how does the Blue Jays' projected lineup look?
The Blue Jays will have Alejandro Kirk at catcher, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at first base, Ernie Clement at second base. They bring over Kazuma Okamoto at third base. I believe Japan
Korea.
or Korea? I think Japan, right? Okay. I had a 50-50 shot. Andres Jimenez at shortstop. The left fielder is going to be a platoon of Nathan Lucas against right-handers and Davis Schneider against left-handers. Dalton Varsho in center field. Addison Barger in right field. And George Springer as the DH. The pitching rotation has 6 different pitchers projected for at least 110 innings pitched, according to Fangraphs. Whether they'll run a 6-man rotation or not remains to be seen. But those 6 pitchers are Dylan Cease, Kevin Gausman, Trey Savage, Cody Ponce, Shane Bieber, and Jose Barrios. And a couple of key relievers worth noting are Jeff Hoffman, Tyler Rogers,
and Okamoto is from Japan. I double-checked while you were talking, so you were right. I was wrong. As far as notable players go, I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised this was a World Series team last year. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is, of course, the cream of the crop here. Last year, he hit .292 with 23 home runs in the regular season, 96 runs, 84 RBIs. You know what you're going to get with Vladdy. I mean, he's going to be a guy that gets on base at a super high clip. The past couple of seasons, he's had an on-base percentage of .381 or better. He's going to draw a ton of walks. I think you can expect to see the power numbers increase from 23 home runs. I think we're going to see closer to 30 this season, but there's really not a whole lot that's unknown about Vladdy Jr. He's probably the best first baseman in all of baseball at this point, and should continue that pace in 2026.
Yeah, I think so as well. I don't know if Vladdy will be able to sustain his ridiculous postseason numbers throughout an entire regular season. Obviously, that's asking a lot, but I think there's definitely a chance he gets some MVP consideration. I don't know if he's going to be at the top of the ballot. It's going to be hard to catch up with the Aaron Judges of the world, to a lesser extent the Cal Raleighs of the world, even though he had a great year last year. I just haven't seen enough sustained effort from Raleigh. But I wouldn't be shocked if you told me that Vladimir Guerrero finished second or third in MVP voting this year.
Moving on from Vladdy, we've got George Springer, who is projected to hit leadoff and play DH/center/right field for the Blue Jays. And it's rare that you see the breakout season from a 35-year-old. Breakout might not be the best word. A career season from a 35-year-old. But that's exactly what George Springer did. He hit .309 with a .399 on base percentage, 32 home runs, 18 stolen bases. And his StatCast page is just off the charts. He had a 99th percentile ex-WOBA, 98th percentile ex-slug, a 94th percentile chase rate, 94th percentile barrel rate. Like, George Springer just came alive last year for some reason, and I don't really know where it all came from. I don't expect him to have this level of production again, but I think you can pretty safely expect, somewhere between 2025 George Springer and every other year George Springer, something in the middle of that, which for, a 36-year-old outfielder is phenomenal levels of production.
Yeah, George Springer had a weird last 2 seasons. 2024, he was a below average hitter, had a .220 batting average, a .674 OPS. His StatCast page was very middle of the road, below the 50th percentile expected batting average, was just over the 50th percentile in expected WOBA and expected slugging percentage. And then last year just has a monster season, essentially out of nowhere. I thought he was well on his way to being washed, so it was nice to see a resurgence from him. I think we're going to see something more similar to his 2023 campaign in 2026. That year, he hit .258, had a 2020 season, but barely had 21 home runs, 20 stolen bases, a .732 OPS. Realistically, if you're Toronto, you can't be asking for a whole lot more, especially since he dealt with injuries during the postseason, was able to play through those just fine. But I wouldn't be shocked if something flares up during the season. You tend to see that a lot with older outfielders. So I would love to see George Springer continue to be great, but I do think there's some writing on the wall that last year was more of a
And then
fluke
the
than anything
last
else.
guy I want to highlight from the Toronto Blue Jays is the guy they just went out and gave a 7-year, $210 million contract to. That is Dylan Cease. The surface level numbers and expected numbers tell two very different stories. On the surface, Dylan Cease had a 4.55 ERA and a 1.33 WHIP across 168 innings last year. Not good. But then you open the hood a little bit, and his expected ERA was down at a 3.46. He had a 29.8% strikeout percentage and had 215 on the year as a whole, which is fantastic. He still throws extremely hard. He's not going to let a ton of guys get hits off of him. His walk percentage could come down a little bit. But the Dylan Cease we saw last year, I think, was wildly unlucky compared to what you should expect from Dylan Cease. He might not be a guy that goes into the 6th or 7th inning very often, but you can consistently rely on 5, maybe 6 strong innings out of him for 30 to 33 starts a season.
Yeah, Dylan Cease is kind of a weird case for me because he's a guy who basically every single year of his career, his expected numbers have been better than his actual numbers. And I'm curious to see, whether that's something that just can't be measured by metrics. And maybe it's something where he's not as good of a pitcher as the expected metrics would say. Obviously, I think he's still a very solid pitcher. But to pay a guy that much money, you kind of hope that eventually his expected numbers and his actual numbers are going to line up over a consistent period of time. We haven't really seen that so far over the course of his career. We saw it in 2024. In 2024, had an actual ERA of 3.47. His expected ERA was 3.29. But beyond that, in 2023, his ERA was above 4.5. 2022, he was phenomenal as well. But the first 3 seasons of his career were pretty inconsistent too. I think it's a good signing for Toronto, but it also has the potential to blow up in their face. I don't know if it's a very low risk deal compared to the amount of money
Yeah,
they
I
paid.
think that's a great way of putting it. I'd give it a C right now. Could very easily turn into an A. Could very easily turn into an F. That's kind of the pitcher Dylan Cease is. But let's move on over from the Blue Jays to the second place / tied for first place New York Yankees, who were also 94 and 68. Braden, how does their opening day roster project as of right now?
At catcher, the Yankees have Austin Wells. First base is going to be a platoon of Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt. Rice will probably play some catcher as well. Jazz Chisholm at second base. Ryan McMahon at third base. Anthony Volpe at shortstop. Cody Bellinger in left field. Trent Grisham in center. Right field is going to be Aaron Judge. Giancarlo Stanton as the DH. And then in the rotation, again, we have another 6-man projected rotation to an extent. Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Garrett Cole, Cam Schlittler, Will Warren, and Ryan Weathers are all projected for at least 100 innings pitched, according to Fangraphs. I think we're probably going to see a 5-man rotation once Rodon and Garrett Cole are fully healthy. There's a chance that both of those guys are missing opening day. With Rodon battling, I think, some elbow injuries. He's made a couple of bullpen appearances in spring training so far with pitchers and catchers reporting, but it sounds like his timetable is late April, early May. And then Garrett Cole is coming off of Tommy John. I'm not entirely sure what his timetable is, but if he misses any time to start this year, it's going to be a little bit rough for the Yankees as well. And out of the bullpen, you have some key guys like David Bednar and Camilo Doval. I think Bednar is going to be the closer. Doval is a setup guy, but it really could be flip-flopped either way if Doval has a strong spring and Bednar maybe struggles to start the year.
And going back to Garrett Cole, I think what I saw is he's about a month behind Rodon, kind of late May, early June. I could be wrong on that. As far as the notable players from the Yankees go, there's this guy named Aaron Judge. That's pretty good. He has won 3 MVPs in the last 4 seasons. Not a whole lot that needs to be said on him. If he's healthy for 150 games, probably going to hit about 50 to 55 home runs. He hit 331 last year, 322 back in 2024. I mean, he's maybe the best pure hitter in the sport. Looking at his StatCast page, he is 99th percentile or higher in the first 6 metrics that pop up. That is xWOBA, expected batting average, expected slugging percentage, average exit velocity, barrel percentage, and hard hit percentage. His average exit velocity, just think about this for a minute. His average exit velocity across every ball he put in play last year was 95.4 miles an hour. And believe it or not, that is actually the worst it has been since 2021. So maybe some regression is coming for Aaron Judge. I don't know. Maybe he's washed. But no, if he's healthy, he's going to be one of the best players in the league again and could very easily win his 4th MVP or 5th MVP, I think, at this point.
Wow. Yeah, there's very little that needs to be added about Aaron Judge. The better question is, are you taking Aaron Judge or the field for MVP? If you get 150 games of Aaron Judge, I think I'm taking Aaron Judge. We saw Cal Raleigh push him for it last year. We've seen guys like Bobby Witt have great seasons in the recent past. I think I'm still taking Judge if he's healthy over everybody else.
I think I would as well. Moving on over from Aaron Judge, we're going to talk about Jazz Chisholm Jr. And the nice thing with Jazz is he can kind of play a little bit of everywhere. Doesn't play anywhere particularly great, but he can play in the outfield. He can play second. He can play third. And I think he came up as a shortstop initially. So he can kind of play everywhere. But it was a 30-30 season for him last year. It wasn't a flashy 30-30. I mean, he hit 242, did have a 332 on base percentage, and finished with an OPS above 800. I think you can pretty safely expect the same thing again if he stays healthy. Injuries have really been the only thing that has kind of derailed him in his career. So if he's healthy for, another 130, 140 games, I think 30-30 is very easily in the field of outcomes again. Range of outcomes, or in the field of play once again. But yeah, he's going to have a lot of positional versatility. Definitely going to see him at multiple positions, and a really nice asset for the Yankees.
Yeah, I think Jazz Chisholm, I don't know. I'm torn on what to think of him because his 2024 campaign and his 2023 campaign, the expected metrics weren't all that great. A lot of stuff around the 40th to 50th percentile. The expected batting average is never going to be super high for him, but the expected WOBA was 46th percentile in 2024. It was 25th percentile in 2023 and jumped all the way up to the 78th percentile in 2025. I think last year is maybe more of an outlier for Jazz Chisholm than a lot of people expect. I don't know if he's going to repeat the 800 OPS. I certainly don't expect him to repeat the 30 home runs, even at a pretty left-handed hitter-friendly park in Yankee Stadium. The 30 stolen bases, I feel pretty confident he can repeat that because he had 40 in 2024. But if you ask me for a Jazz Chisholm projection, I would guess somewhere between a 750 and a 775 OPS, and probably more like a 20-30 season, maybe a 25-35 season than a 30-30 season. And then
the last player, there's too many notable, impactful players on the Yankees to touch on all of them. So the last one we're going to touch on for today is their ace to at least open the year. Maybe once Garrett Cole comes back, that will change. But Max Fried was fantastic last year for the Yankees. Finished with a 19-5 record, over 195 and a third innings pitched, a 2.86 ERA, and was really, really solid just across the board. His expected stats on StatCast aren't anything crazy, but he was 92nd percentile in average exit velocity allowed. He was 89th percentile in ground ball rate. And he usually is very, very good at limiting walks and just in general limiting hard contact. Kind of the same thing, though, as Jazz Chisholm. Injuries have been known to be present with Max Fried. He threw 77 and 2/3 innings in 2023. That's the last time he's really missed a huge chunk of games. But coming off of a career high 195 and a third innings, there's going to be a little bit of concern that an injury is going to pop up. I think every pitcher at this point in where baseball is has like a 30% chance of getting hurt every year. Max Fried is probably at like 40%. But should he be on the field, I mean, he's going to throw 180 innings at a low 3 ERA. His expected ERA last year was at 3.38, so not like you're going to see a huge drop there. Max Fried is a very, very good pitcher, and even if Garrett Cole comes back, he could still very easily be the ace for the Yankees.
Yeah, I think comparing Garrett Cole to Max Fried, Garrett Cole is like the home run hitter of aces. Max Fried is the Luis Arias of aces. You know exactly what you're going to get out of Max Fried, and that's consistent above averageness at basically everything you need. Last year, his chase rate was the only thing below the 50th percentile according to his expected metrics, and that was only the second full season of his career in which it has been below 50%. He's going to do everything at least fairly well. Can do some stuff elite, especially we saw with the strikeout rate last year. It's not the strikeout. The walk rate was at the 76th percentile. The ground ball rate was the 89th percentile, hard hit rate in the 76th percentile. There's a lot to like about Max Fried. He's probably not going to post an ERA under 2 for the Yankees. Garrett Cole has the potential to do that. I don't think Fried even can get under 2.5 for the most part, but at the very least, you're getting somewhere between a 2.7 and a 3.7 ERA, and you will take that every day.
Ben Rice would have been the other player I wanted to talk about as far as, a potential notable, impactful guy for the Yankees. We talked about him, I think, a couple months ago at this point, back in December. So if you want to go back and listen to our underdog best ball draft where we did that for MLB, we talk about Ben Rice pretty extensively on there. But let's shift things on over to the third place Boston Red Sox, who fell to the Yankees in the first round of the playoffs last year. They finished 89 and 73. Braden, how does the Red Sox lineup project to look on opening day?
The Red Sox have Carlos Narvaez at catcher. Wilson Contreras comes over from St. Louis at first base. Caleb Durbin at second base, recently acquired from the Milwaukee Brewers in a trade. Marcelo Meyer at third base. Trevor Story at shortstop. And the outfield has Roman Anthony, Ceddanne Rafaela, and Wilyer Abreu from left to right. The DH is Jarren Duran. We're going to see him play plenty of outfield as well, but Fangraphs has him projected to take the lion's share of the DH at bats. In the starting rotation, you have 4 guys set in stone. That's Garrett Crochet, Sonny Gray, Ranger Suarez, and Brian Bayo. The 5th spot is a pretty complete question mark. It could be any of Johan Oviedo, Patrick Sandoval, Cutter Crawford, Connolly Early, or Peyton Toll. It remains to be seen who that 5th starter is going to be at this point, and it's possible the Red Sox even open the year with a 6-man rotation. The bullpen has 2 key stalwarts. That's Aroldis Chapman, still kicking in about his 85th season in Major League Baseball, and a relative young gun in Garrett Whitlock, who I think is in his probably late 20s now, or at least mid-20s, as a great setup.
Let's start things off with Garrett Crochet, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, and I believe second in Cy Young voting last year to Tarek Skubal. Not a whole lot that needs to be said. I mean, he had a 2.59 ERA across 205 and a third innings. His expected ERA was below 3, which is hard enough to do as a starting pitcher, let alone when you top 200 innings pitched. So that's incredible from Crochet. His chase rate, his strikeout rate, his expected ERA, all 90th percentile or higher. His ground ball rate, his walk rate, average exit velocity, and expected batting average allowed, 80th percentile or higher. His entire StatCast page is just bright red. There's nothing that Garrett Crochet does not do at a high level, and but definitely will be very, very much in the trenches of the Cy Young conversation once again in the American League.
Yeah, it was really nice to see Garrett Crochet put together back-to-back healthy seasons, which has been a thorn of his side for the majority of his career so far. The last years, he's made 32 starts in each of those seasons, almost doubling his career total in starts. His first 3 years in the major leagues, I got to do some mental math here quick, but I think he made 72 starts over those 3 seasons, which isn't something to really sneeze at, but he made just 13 starts in 2023. I think there was another year in there that's not counted on Baseball Savant where he missed the entirety of it with Tommy John. So it's good to see him finally healthy on the baseball diamond. Hopefully that continues. With a guy with elbow issues over the course of his career, it is something to keep in mind. But when healthy, Garrett Crochet is a top 5 pitcher.
Moving on from Garrett Crochet to a youngster, one of the better young outfielders in the league, that is Roman Anthony, who as a 21-year-old last year across 303 plate appearances, hit .292 with a .396 on-base percentage and 27 extra base hits in 71 games played. Very, very impressive numbers for a guy who was just legally able to buy himself a drink. He's not eligible for, any of the StatCast metrics because it was a small sample size. But I mean, if he was, his whiff rate and his strikeout rate would have been pretty low. Everything else would have been damn near elite. Roman Anthony, I think you can assume a little bit of regression is going to come. His expected batting average was down at 258, so we're probably going to see somewhere between that and the 292 we had last year. I think 270, 275 is somewhere around what you should be expecting. But despite overperforming the batting average, he underperformed in the power. His expected slugging was actually 21 points higher than his actual. He hit the ball extremely hard. His hard hit percentage was 60.3%. I cannot think of a player off the top of my head with a better hard hit percentage than that, and I would be shocked if there was any. His average exit velocity was 94.5 miles an hour. He just destroys baseballs. And even with some slight regression, presumably being there in 2026, Roman Anthony is going to be one of the best hitters in this division. I would think, especially for several years to come. And yeah, I think this future is extremely bright for this young man.
Yeah, quick note on the hard hit percentage. Shohei Ohtani was the highest qualified batter in hard hit percentage last year. He was at 58.7%. So we saw about, what, half a season worth of at bats from Roman Anthony, maybe 40% of a season, and he was above Shohei Ohtani in that category. That's pretty damn impressive. For Roman Anthony overall, one thing I'm curious to see is if he's actually like a good hitter on balls in the zone, because the chase rate and the walk rate are excellent. He's in about probably the 80th, maybe 90th percentile in both of those categories, but the whiff rate and strikeout rates are pretty low. So I can't tell if it's like a plate discipline thing or if he's just taking too many pitches or swinging and missing in the zone. That's something I probably need to look more into for Roman Anthony. But regardless, when he makes contact, ball go far. I expect him to hit a lot of home runs this year. I saw his betting line is like 19.5, which feels criminally low. I think there's a higher chance he hits about 30 home runs. I don't know if he's going to hit maybe 35, 40 home runs. But if you told me Roman Anthony had a 30-20 season this year, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, he only had
in the
8
slightest.
last year. I think part of the reason is, he hits the ball on the ground and hits so many line drives. I don't know what his minor league numbers looked like. Obviously, they were great. But yeah, I don't know what to fully expect for power this year from Roman Anthony. But 30 home runs would certainly not surprise me. And then the last player I want to highlight from the Red Sox is Jarren Duran. Duran was outstanding in 2024. Took a bit of a step back in 2025. He had 256 with a 332 on base percentage. Still had 70 extra base hits on the year, but the power did decrease a little bit on the whole, as did the batting average, as did the speed. Everything kind of took a step back, but that's to be expected after, his really, really strong 2024 season. Looking at the expected stats, it's meh. I mean, he hits the ball really, really hard, but there's a lot of swing and miss. He doesn't walk a ton. His expected batting average was below league average. His ex-WOBA was at 326, which is 54th percentile, so nothing crazy. He does barrel the ball up quite a bit. His hard hit percentage was in the 71st percentile. So you can count on him to hit the ball hard. You can count on him to steal bases. But additionally, I think there might be some playing time concerns with Jarren Duran. He's a lefty, and it's going to be hard to, take him out of the lineup. But you've got guys who are capable of hitting left-handed pitching, and Jarren Duran is not great at that. He's also not a great defender. I mean, he's a solid defender, but he's not like anything crazy. So I think if we do see Duran struggle a little bit to start the season, that could lead to some potential playing time issues going forward.
Yeah, you mentioned the playing time issues. I'm not entirely sure who's going to be stealing those at bats. Tristan Casas is missing some time to start the year, I think. Masataka Yoshida has honestly sucked throughout his MLB career so far, has been not even close to what the Red Sox are paying him to be. I think Duran has a pretty long leash. Yeah, I mean, if he sucks for, 2 or 3 months, maybe at that point, if somebody else emerges, he's going to start losing at bats. But I wouldn't expect it to be a major concern. I think it is pretty clear that his 2024 campaign is at least somewhat of an outlier. I gotta check his 2023 stats here. In 2023, he played 102 games, had pretty similar raw numbers. The OPS plus was a little bit of a drop from 2024, or I guess it improved a little bit from 2023 to 2024, but the other numbers were fairly similar. I don't know if he's going to be a guy who's going to be a perennial all-star at the MLB level, but at the very least, he's one of those guys who's like the quad A version of all-stars, if that makes sense. You have the all-stars being the major leaguers, you have your everyday guys being your AAA guys. Duran is like the quad A version of a major leaguer.
Moving from the Red Sox over to the 4th place Tampa Bay Rays, who finished 77-85, obviously did not make the postseason. But Braden, how does the Rays lineup project to look on opening day?
Tampa Bay has Nick Fortes at catcher, Jonathan Aranda at first base, Gavin Lux at second base. I forgot he was there. Junior Caminero at third base. Shortstop is Taylor Walls for now, for all of about 3 weeks, I assume. And then Carson Williams will get the call to the majors and presumably take over the starting shortstop role. In the outfield, you have Chandler Simpson in left field, Cedric Mullins in center, and Jake Fraley in right field, with Yandy Diaz holding down the DH position. The starting rotation has Drew Rasmussen, Ryan Pepiot, Shane McClanahan, Steven Matz, and Nick Martinez. And in the bullpen, Fangraphs has 3 different players listed as closers for the Rays, including Edwin Uceta, Griffin Jacks, and Garrett
Really,
Clevenger.
the only super notable player from the Rays is Junior Caminero. Caminero really took the league by storm last year. I drafted him in our fantasy league, and he was probably my best pick of the draft. He had 45 home runs, 28 other doubles. He hit 264 with a 311 on base percentage and 846 OPS as a 21-year-old. I do think it's worth noting that in addition to not getting on base at a super high clip, he doesn't draw a ton of walks. But in addition, the Rays spent last year at George Steinbrenner Field, which is, the dimensions are made for Yankee Stadium. So he had a very short porch that he was hitting to, I should say. That's not going to be there this year. And Tropicana Field is kind of notorious for being a poor hitter's park. So I do think we'll see the power numbers decrease down to, I don't know, from 45 homers down to 35 to 40. Even still, I mean, that's very, very good power output. But I do think that we'll see a little bit of a step back from Junior Caminero in a second full season. You are muted, Mr. Riley Hoover. I know.
Good catch. Usually I'm the one reminding you of that. Looking at his expected home run numbers, you can see Junior Caminero has a lot in like the low to mid 30s from last year. The lowest I'm seeing for his expected home runs is 33, so still would have had a great year. But there's very few parks last year if he hit there for 162 games where he would have hit 40 plus home runs. I think this year, especially at Tropicana, we're probably going to see more in line of that, mid 30s for Caminero, even if he has a great season. His launch angle sweet spot was in the 2nd percentile last year. That does leave a little bit of concern, especially since the squared up percentage was also in the 20th percentile. Hits the ball very hard when he makes contact. But if you told me Junior Caminero was going to go back to being a single-digit home run hitter versus potentially a 50 home run hitter, I think it's more likely that he hits in the single digits than hits 50 plus. And that's maybe crazy to say since he had 45 last year, but over his first couple of seasons had 7 home runs combined. I think last year is a little bit of an outlier. I would project Caminero to have maybe 20 to 25 home runs this year. Still a very solid season. Still going to post probably a high 700s, low 800s OPS. Probably still the Rays' best player. However, I think Jonathan Aranda is another name worth considering for that title. Aranda was phenomenal last year. Looking at his StatCast page, he was 96th percentile in expected WOBA, 97th percentile expected batting average, 93rd percentile expected slugging, 94th percentile expected velo, 96th percentile in hard hit rate, 98th percentile for launch angle sweet spot, hit 316, only had 14 home runs, but I'm expecting a big surge from him
and I was
in
just about to bring him
up.
Because, looking at his StatCast page, like you said, it's ridiculous. The one thing that concerns me with Jonathan Aranda is his BABIP, which, if you're not familiar with BABIP, balls or batting average on balls in play only, nothing else considered, was over 400 last year. 350 is typically considered that number where you're likely not going to repeat it. So 400 plus, you're definitely not repeating that, especially going from George Steinbrenner Field back to the Trop. So I do think we'll see him hit, closer to 275, 285. Either way, I mean, with how hard he hits the ball, he's going to put up good production. But injuries are definitely a concern with him as well. Last year, he had 422 plate appearances. He had 246 combined plate appearances in 2023 and 2024. So we'll see if he's able to stay healthy for the majority of the season. But yes, I definitely agree. There is a lot to like with Jonathan Aranda, even if some regression is factored in with that. And then moving on over to the last place Baltimore Orioles, which, considering the makeup of that team, just feels wrong. They finished 75 and 87, but project to have a much better year in 2026. And Braden, what is their projected opening day roster looking like?
At catcher, they've got Adley Rutschman, who I will soapbox later if he's not one of our player previews. Pete Alonso at first base, the big addition in the offseason. Jackson Holliday at second base, Jordan Westberg at third base, Gunnar Henderson at shortstop. In the outfield, you have Taylor Ward in left field, coming over in that straight up trade for Grayson Rodriguez. Colton Cowser in center field, and then right field is going to be a platoon of Dylan Beavers and Tyler O'Neill. The DH is going to be Samuel Basallo, who's probably going to play a decent bit of first base and catcher as well. Maybe not first base as much with Alonso there, but we're going to see him on the field, I would think 90% of the time, if not more. The rotation has a lot of question marks. Basically, everybody in this rotation has some type of question mark. You have 6 guys projected for at least 118 innings pitched, according to Fangraphs. Chris Bassett was just signed. He turns 37 in about a week and a half. Shane Baz finally stayed healthy for a full year last year and kind of sucked. He had a 4.95 or a 4.87 ERA. Excuse me, that was his first year with more than 14 starts in his MLB career. Trevor Rogers has been extremely hot and cold, was great last year at 18 starts, had an ERA below 2, but in 2024 had an ERA of 4.92, including 4 really terrible starts at the Orioles where he had an ERA of like 7, and in 2022 had a 5.47 ERA. The 2024 and 2022 seasons are his most recent full campaigns, so that's certainly something worth keeping an eye on for the Orioles rotation. And then beyond that, Kyle Bradish has been bitten by the injury bug, has just 14 starts since the 2024 season kicked off. Zach Eflin had an ERA of nearly 6 in 2025. Dean Kramer's been consistent. He has 3 straight years between a 4.1 and a 4.19 ERA, but he is not a top-end starter. And then, now that I've finished my analysis of the starting rotation, in the bullpen, you have a couple of key guys who I forgot to write down. I have the Blue Jays players still copied and pasted.
You got Ryan Helsley. I'll help you out. You got Ryan Helsley. You got Andrew Kittredge, Yennier Cano, who's been one of the better setup men in the league for a little while. And Felix Bautista is the other one, but I think he just had a major arm surgery. So I don't think he'll be playing much, if at all, in 2026. Starting with Gunnar Henderson, though, for notable players. It was a weird season for Gunnar Henderson. Everything besides the home runs were perfectly fine. He stole the most bases of any season in his career. His batting average was at 274. He got on base. He had 34 doubles, 5 triples, but only 17 home runs. And that is in comparison to 37 home runs in 2024 and 28 in 2023. I saw something, and I don't remember what the injury was that kept him out for the first couple of games at the start of the season, but I think that was kind of hampering him for like 3/4 of the season, because Gunnar Henderson himself came out and said that. But like I said, I don't remember what the actual issue was. But he still hit the ball super hard. It was just on the ground a lot more last year. But on the whole, it was just more swing and miss, more strikeouts. He still walked a good amount, but the power just wasn't what we're used to seeing from Gunnar Henderson. I think you can pretty safely bet that the power is going to be back closer to where it was in 2023 and 2024. Maybe not to the full extent, but Gunnar Henderson is definitely one of those guys with 30-30 upside. And if he's healthy, he should come very close to that.
Yeah, I would bank on Gunnar Henderson bouncing back. I looked it up. He had a shoulder impingement, I think is how you pronounce that, for most of 2025. He said that he could never get to a point that he wanted to get with his swing, played through it for about 3/4 of the year. I think once he's fully clear of that, we're going to see more of the 2024 and the 2023 Gunnar Henderson. His StatCast profile was still pretty solid overall. Had a lot of stuff, at least in the non-power department, that's pretty red. We saw basically everything be bright red in 2024 and in 2023. So I'm expecting Gunnar Henderson to at least have a 25-25 or maybe a 25-20 season, if not a 30-20 season.
Moving on over to newly acquired Baltimore Oriole, or newly signed, I should say, Pete Alonso. He last year in New York had maybe the best year of his career. He hit 272, which is comfortably a career best, 38 home runs, a 347 on-base percentage, and an 871 OPS. His expected stats on StatCast were fantastic. 96th percentile in xWOBA. His expected batting average was actually 2 points higher than it actually was at 274. His expected slugging percentage was at 572, 98th percentile. Average exit velocity was in the 97th percentile. Barrel percentage, 98th percentile. Hard hit percentage, 96th. You know what you're getting with Pete Alonso. He's going to hit the ball extremely hard. He's going to strike out quite a bit as well. Not going to provide anything in the speed department. Not a whole lot defensively either. But Pete Alonso is a guy who is very much almost guarantee to hit 35 to 40 home runs should he be healthy for the entirety of the season. This could be one of those situations like we've seen in the past with guys who are, in their first year of a massive new contract, where Pete Alonso, it takes a little bit of time getting used to. And I don't have it off the top of my head, but I know his home versus away splits were much better in terms of at home. He was great. On the road, it was a little shakier. So maybe that'll throw things off a bit in Baltimore to start. But I think all in all, like I said, you can very safely count on Alonso for 35 to 40 home runs. The batting average will probably come down, but if it's still around 250, 240, that's perfectly fine for what Pete Alonso does.
Yeah, I looked up his splits quick, and funny enough, the home run numbers were very similar. He had 20 home runs at home, 18 home runs on the road. But besides that, he was much better at Citi Field, had a 304 batting average, a 572 slugging percentage, and a 946 OPS. On the road, those numbers cratered to 242, 478, and 798. So he was still a very productive hitter away from Citi Field, but obviously nowhere near the player he was at home for the Mets last season. With Pete Alonso, it's kind of funny. His expected metrics almost exactly line up with his normal statistics every single season, especially in the expected batting average department. If he has a good batting average, his expected batting average is good. If he has a bad batting average, his expected batting average is bad. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I would lean towards it being good because you kind of know what you're getting out of Pete Alonso. I would expect him to have another great season in the power department. I think the batting average is going to be a little bit lower this year. I think it's probably somewhere in that 230 to 250 range. But if he can put up an 800 plus OPS, ideally an 850 plus OPS, you're going to be loving that as a Baltimore
And then the
Orioles
last
fan.
player I want to highlight from Baltimore, because there's too many on Baltimore to touch on all of them. But the last one I want to look at is a guy who you briefly mentioned earlier. It is Kyle Bradish. And the reason I want to talk about him, there's so many different ways this season could go for Kyle Bradish, because over the past couple of seasons, you talked about the injury concerns. He's thrown a combined 72 and a third innings, but has a combined 100 strikeouts in that 72 inning span. His ERA over the last 3 seasons combined, 3 seasons individually and combined, are all below 3. His expected ERA in 2024 was 268. Last year it was 309. So Kyle Bradish, when he's on the field, has been absolutely fantastic. It's just been a matter of, can he actually stay on the field? Because in 2023, he threw 168 and 2/3 innings. He had a 283 ERA and 168 strikeouts. The whip is low every single year. It's a very pitcher-friendly ballpark in Baltimore. So, if he stays healthy, Kyle Bradish could very, very easily be, an ace level of pitcher. But that's all but a guarantee at this point. So, a lot of ways 2026 could go for Kyle Bradish. But if he's on the field, he's definitely a name to know.
Yeah, with Bradish, I know this isn't really a fantasy episode, but I think he's an excellent buy low candidate in fantasy baseball. I'm not entirely sure where he's going in drafts. I would have to assume it's pretty close to the back of drafts, both in ESPN leagues, Yahoo leagues, Fantrax leagues, and on Underdog. Given that the price point is extremely low, you can drop him if it's a season long league, like an ESPN fantasy league, and then an Underdog. If he's a zero, it's whatever. You're not really losing a whole lot out of your 15th, 16th, 17th round pick. So I think he's a great buy low candidate there.
And I'm trying to find where he is. Okay. Kyle Bradish on Underdog. A lot of people feel the same way we do. He is the 23rd pitcher coming off the board at an ADP of 103.7.
Oh, wow.
So there is...
Okay, I don't know if I love the price point there then.
Taking him as your potential second starting pitcher is a little bold. In best ball, it definitely makes more sense because the upside is obviously there, and you're playing for the upside scenario. But yeah, in a home league like on ESPN, I probably wouldn't want to take him that high. But around the SP 30, 35 range, I think that's completely fair for Kyle Bradish given the health concerns.
Yeah, I would lean the same way. And then before we move on to our next segment, I want to touch on Adley Rutschman here. I think he's due for a bounce back this year. He's had a pretty, poor last, season and a half. In 2025, he had a 90 OPS plus, sorry, 90 OPS plus, and 90 OPS would be awful. Appeared in just 90 games last season. But if you look at his baseball savant pages from 2023 to 2025, there's some hope there. The expected WOBA and expected batting average were both above the 90th percentile, had excellent whiff rate, chase rate, strikeout rate, and walk rate metrics as well in 2023. Great defensively in 2023 as well. Then you look at 2025, and the only thing that's staying the same in that red category is the patience at the plate. Last year, he was still 88th percentile in chase rate, 94th percentile in whiff rate, 83rd percentile in strikeout rate, 80th in walk rate. The catching took a hit. The defense, I should say, took a hit, as well as the on base and level of contact. I think that's a good thing for the most part. Yes, obviously, would have liked to see him stay healthy over the course of the last season and a half or so. But I think the oblique strains he suffered in 2025 had two separate 30-game IL stints, had a pretty big impact on both his power and his defense. Now that he's presumably fully removed from those, I would not be shocked if Adley Rutschman bounces back to all-star form in 2026.
I tend to agree. I mean, it feels like the injuries are always what's been doing it. Obliques are notoriously hard to come back from during the season because they just kind of linger. And obviously we saw that last year. So I'm with you. I think if he's healthy, this is another phenomenal buy low opportunity, like presumably Kyle Bradish, although on underdog, not so much, obviously. But yeah, I think we know the type of player Adley Rutschman can be. We've seen it. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And I think that's going to be a big thing with the Orioles overall this year, not just Adley Rutschman, but we talked about Gunnar Henderson, Kyle Bradish as well. They got to be on the field to be at their best. So we got to see that happen first. And then, Braden, before we move on to our buy-sell, we each have a breakout from the American League East Division, and I will let you get us started with yours.
Sure thing. I'm going to go with a Toronto Blue Jays starting pitcher here. And believe it or not, it is not going to be Trey Savage. I think he's already broken out. We all kind of know what he's going to be. I'm going to go with Ricky Tiedemann here. Trey Savage, obviously the much more popular pick, but I think Tiedemann's going to have a great 2026 if he's able to break through the major league level. He's the number 5 prospect in the Blue Jays organization, was a top 30 prospect in baseball prior to both 2023 and 2024 seasons, but is now outside the top 100. And that's mostly due to his struggles at AA and AAA. He had a 4.4 ERA at AA and a 4.15 ERA at AAA respectively, but has dominated A-ball. At high A, he's got a 2.39 ERA. At low A, he's got a 1.43 ERA. And even at AA and AAA, he's got solid stuff. Has an 11.8 strikeouts per 9 rate at AAA and a 15.1 strikeouts per 9 rate at AA. Has some pretty solid tools as well. Fangraphs has him graded as a 60 grade fastball, 60 grade slider. The changeup leaves a little bit to be desired. It's at a 45 grade there, and the command isn't great either. That's a big thing for him so far. Across his 41 minor league starts, has 4.4 walks per 9 innings. I think if he's able to hone in the command, Ricky Tiedemann could have a very nice season and surprise a lot of people, show everybody why he was a top 30 prospect in baseball.
Yeah,
just a few years
I'm
ago.
with you. I think this is going to be a really nice bounce back opportunity for Ricky Tiedemann. I think the skill set is absolutely there. And I don't have a whole lot to add. I think Ricky Tiedemann is a great pick there. I'm going to go with another tall, lanky, left-handed pitcher. I'm going to go with Connolly Early of the Boston Red Sox as my breakout pick. Early last year, made it to the majors. He threw in 19 1/3 innings in the regular season. Was utterly fantastic. He had a 2.33 ERA in those 19 1/3 innings, 29 strikeouts, and a 1.09 whip. He obviously was not eligible for the advanced stats on StatCast. But if he was, he would have been comfortably above league average in everything besides his fastball velocity, which was 39th percentile at 93.7 miles an hour. Early has a 6-pitch mix with a 4-seam, a curveball, a changeup, sinker, slider, sweeper. They're all pretty good pitches. Looking at his stuff plus, his slider and his fastball are his 2 worst pitches technically. His curveball / sweeper and his changeup are both gross. And he's had no problem locating all of them. He can throw them all across the plate for a strike. But, I mean, he had a 2.35 expected ERA. He got swings and misses on over 1 out of every 3 pitches he threw that hitter swung at. He had a strikeout to walk ratio of north of 7-1. which is ridiculous. He gave up a barrel on 4.5% of every ball put in play. He got a ground ball on almost 50% of every ball put in play. Like everything for Connolly early last year, despite a small sample size, was fantastic. I know he had a good playoff game, or would have been only one game because the Red Sox lost in the wild card. But he pitched well there. Like everything that I'm seeing from Connolly early is utterly spectacular. He might get squeezed out of the opening day rotation if they opt to roll with a 5-man. But even if that's the case, he is not going to be in AAA for very long. This is one of the better pitching prospects in all of baseball, and last season showed why. So I am extremely high on Connolly early entering the season.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about Connolly early. I think what he has, which is a leg over pretty much every other starter competing for that number 5 job in the Boston rotation, is a combination of great stuff that gets strikeouts and limiting walks. Had a 13.5 strikeouts per 9 last year in his 4 starts, 1.9 walks per 9 innings. The one knock on him, if you can even call it a knock, is the teams he faced weren't particularly great. Made 2 of his starts against the A's, 1 against Tampa, and did face the Tigers. Only give up 2 runs to Detroit in, I think, 5 innings. So a pretty solid start even against a playoff team. Detroit did make the playoffs, right? Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember, but I knew they were at least in contention.
I'm looking it up right now because I can't remember myself. Let's see here.
No, they did because they played Seattle.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, beat Cleveland in the wild card, and then lost in Game 5. So yeah, good call. I thought they had made it, but yeah, good thing we checked. And then Braden, I know you had a couple other things with the Yankees and the Red Sox you wanted to maybe touch on before we moved on.
Yeah, I'll touch on these super quick. A lot of it for the Yankees just kind of has to do with their back half of the rotation. I am not confident at all for a lot of those guys. Schlittler, Will Warren, and Ryan Weathers are all projected for ERAs and FIPS above 4. Luis Heel is projected for a 4.42 ERA and a 4.52 FIP, with Cole and Rodon potentially missing a month plus each. And Rodon has battled the injury bug throughout his career for the most part. It's possible that neither of those guys is available by opening day. There could be some early losses for the Yankees that potentially squeeze them out of winning this division. And then with Boston, their infield defense concerns me a little bit. You had Wilson Contreras in a 91st percentile and outs above average last year. That doesn't matter a ton at first base. It's still good to see, especially from a guy who's converted from catcher. But I don't know if it's going to make up for Caleb Durbin being 50th percentile and outs above average. Trevor Story has fallen off tremendously defensively. In 2025, he was in the 3rd percentile and outs above average. And then additionally, you have Marcelo Meyer at third base, who did not qualify for outs above average. He would have been a bit above average there, but was 26th percentile in arm strength. That could be an issue at third base. The Red Sox still should be pretty good. They have a pretty solid defensive outfield, especially with Ceddanne Rafaela, but they have some potential question marks.
Yeah, and going back to New York, I mean, I think those concerns are all valid. I think Cam Schlittler in particular, kind of the highest up of that bunch. I think a lot of that is from that playoff start he had against Boston, where I think it was like 8 scoreless innings with 12 strikeouts and no walks or something like that. I think that's kind of propping his value up a little bit entering the season. But all in all, I agree. I think the back of the Yankees rotation is a little bit sketchy. And yeah, I agree with what you said on Boston as well.